If you are a parent, that either becomes a song of great delight, or if you have ever gone to Disney World, it grades at you for 7 days until you get home. And to hear children singing that over and over in the back seat of a Suburban. I just wanted to share with you, Disney knows great things. Just came there last year, had a family vacation. It was an amazing time. It is the happiest place on earth. I was kind of amazed at that because if you look to your right and you look to your left, that would be my right and my left, there are children crying everywhere. Parents are full of anxiety. Lines are long. Drinks are far and few between. And ice cream mouse ears are $5.60 a piece. It's a place of happiness only if you have stock in the Walt Disney World Corporation. Believe me, it's one of those kinds of things that you don't go anywhere else. You've got to focus in on the Disney experience. It's a wonderful experience. It truly is. It's not something I could do every year. Matter of fact, I would prefer not to do it ever again. But it is one of those things that you always make memories. And we've been there several times, and my brother is a Disney fanatic. He is nuts. He is absolutely nuts about Disney. He has taken the underground Disney tour. He knows where the trash goes. He knows where the office goes. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a morgue at Disney World. Unbelievable stuff that you would never imagine. I did this. It was amazing. I said, Gina, watch this. It's the cleanest place I've ever seen. Watch this. And I wrapped up a piece of paper, a good little piece of paper. And I was sitting on next to one of the rides, and I threw it on the ground. It was like birds came from everywhere. This guy was on it and had that thing picked up before it hit the ground almost. The restrooms are clean. I have never wanted to go to the bathroom in all my life except at Disney World. It's beautiful. Mickey talks to you. Come again, come again. It's just the most wonderful place on earth because everybody is so happy. They have what they call instilled in the people that work there, the Disney way. Even to the point of the people that drive the buses and the trains and everybody. It's so happy. And by the time you want to get back to your room, you could care less about what anybody says. And then I can remember it to this day. Take all small children by the hand. Take all your baskets, all of your clothing. Thank you for riding the Disney World Transportation System. Please come again. I could hear that over and over. But it's the most wonderful and happy place on earth because they know how to interact with thousands of people. And you know, some of the things I used to say to myself, that's how churches ought to be. They ought to take an understanding of what it's like to how Disney World does their broad interpretation of welcoming. There's nobody that does it better except Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is awesome. Thank you. My pleasure. They are told to say my pleasure, but every time, sometimes I just want to drive around one more time and just talk to them and say, could I have 3 more ice cubes? Just because I want to talk to somebody that truly pretends like they care. It is just an amazing thing. I would love that. And Disney has got it down better than anything. I promise you that. I've always said, back when Eisner had it, I would think that Eisner should have been president because I think that Disney World and Disney Corporation understands how to deal with people better than most. But then, as time goes on, you also find out that their major incentive is the bottom line. You know what I'm talking about. They create things in which they could, if they could find a tenth more profit, they're going to do that. They're going to find anything they can to make sure. And they will go anti-political against making everybody happy if they can make more money. Disney World was the kind of thing to me that was just an exciting thing. It was the happiest place on earth, and everybody's happy. It's clean and everything. And even through all the challenges that people are facing of making sure they get to line in time, or standing in line, and crying babies and poopy diapers and all of this stuff, it's all there. The ambiance is so amazing, and you're sick and tired, but yet they still make you feel good. And they know how to do it well. Then COVID hit. They found out some things. I was reading an article this week. The challenges that Disney World, they opened up last week, they don't have the interaction on one-on-one with people. They don't have the interaction with people anymore. They don't have the parades. They don't have the characters that can come out. They're all up and lined up on the rooftops as you come in. They stay 6 feet away from you. And the people that come out say, it's not the same. It's changed. It's not what it used to be. It's not the happiest place on earth anymore. I was thinking about that, and I thought, my goodness, there are so many churches that have these large churches that used to have 20, 25,000 people, and I thought, my gosh, what are they doing that's so great? I mean, it's a Disney World kind of thing. They make you feel good. You're greeted at the door, and you are loved, and you go back and you're loved again. But there's a falsity of that love, isn't there? Because we are loving in the masses. We are talking about fake news. We're also talking about the idea of fake love. Disney could care less. Man, you fork over $250 some a ticket. A ticket! I better be loved like I've never been loved beyond my recognition. Now it's going up. And now it's not the same. And it may never, ever be the same. I was thinking of that, and I was thinking of the idea that Jesus had these mass gatherings. We know that he fed the 5,000. We know that there were so many people at when he gave the Sermon on the Mount, and hundreds of thousands of people, and we know that, but you just understand those were far and few in between. There just weren't that many. There are 40 interactions that we find in the New Testament with Jesus that are not Walt Disney World interaction. They're interactions in which are one-on-one. And as I was thinking about this, and I was challenged by reading this article about Disney and about the failure of how Disney may not make it through this, because everything that they've built their livelihood on was the happiness of others. And I don't mean this, Wendy, whether you're happy, it's the 5,000 that come with you. And maybe the church has done the very same thing. I'm going to give you 9 interactions. There's 9 interactions, but I'm going to kind of give you some things here about Jesus in which I want to share with you because of the fact that these are interactions in which Jesus was the one that initiated them. And I want you to grab a hold of this because this has nothing to do with Disney World. This has nothing to do with a grand scheme of things. This has nothing to do with your pastor being such a great speaker or your praise team being so great that we come there to be entertained and we're packing out the house. It's the idea that Jesus interacted and initiated these interactions. He did it. And what I'm thinking here, Joe, as I think about this is, yeah, he did the mass speaking engagements, but it was in these small interactions in which we write down in the Bible and we learn from them. There's 40 meetings that he gave. 9 of them begin with Jesus taking the initiative. I'm just going to go through them and then we'll end with the one that I want to share with you. The rich young ruler, the rich young man. Remember that in Mark 19, 16 through 30. Remember also in the demonic when he met up with the demonic and he's the one that initiated talking directly in Mark 5, 1 through 12. And then we also know with Jairus, Mark 5, 21 through 43. But it was in Mark 5, 24 through 34 that I want to share with you. This is just one of the 9. Interaction with one woman. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed him and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she got worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched the cloak because she thought, if I just can touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out of him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" You see the people crowding against you, his disciples said, and yet you can ask, "Who touched me?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet and trembled with fear, told him the truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering." Even in the massive crowd, even in the challenge of the massive crowd that was going on, it was Jesus who could feel the pain of someone else. It was Jesus who initiated going back and talking to her. You don't get that at Disney World. You won't. The only time that ever happened to me was when we were pregnant with Ryan and Gina got sick. Why we were riding rides is beyond me at 4 months in pregnancy. But she came out of a door and she puked on Mickey Mouse. What a beautiful moment that was. And Mickey, "You're all right," took my wife and walked her over to the paramedics. Where they came from, I don't know. It was like they just jumped out of the bushes. It's funny, these paramedics have badges, but they're like little Mickey Mouse ears. And they're amazing. I was amazed. My point in that was, Mickey came out of nowhere, was there at the right time. Jesus knew that there was something that had touched him in spite of the thousands of people that he was with. And he made the difference and he interacted. See, here's the thing I want to make sure, Rusty, we get today. We are put in this situation of COVID where we're not supposed to be in these large groups of things. We're not supposed to be in a situation like this. We're not supposed to touch people. We're not supposed to talk to people. In California, you cannot sing on Sunday mornings. It's different than it's ever been. So what it's telling me is 9 times Jesus interacted personally with people in the New Testament. Here's what it's saying to me, Pastor. It's saying to me, man, we can have this we can have brand new chairs, we can get this thing all, and we can pack this thing out. But without the interaction of Jesus, and without the interaction of you, Wendy, and of the Wilmus boys, without Jim interacting with somebody else and going to find where the pain is, churches dies. Walt Disney doesn't know what to do. They've never had to interact one-on-one. You know why? Because they based it all on money. Jesus based it all on souls and the kingdom. Go through that list. But it was that story of the hemorrhaging woman in a crowd of people who couldn't even get through the streets that Jesus could sense their challenge. And here's what I'm telling you. I believe with all my heart today that through this COVID situation, this story applies. You know, and I know somebody who we would have just let by and let go and not done anything with, but God has put them in our paths to show Jesus to. We can't do it on a big group setting. The other thing that was amazing to me, JR, is this. Jesus felt it. Jesus knew there was somebody tugging on his robe. And he sensed it. I believe through all of this COVID and this challenges that we've been placed in right now, Ken, I believe that it's also had creating and making us think more sensitively and be able to find people who no one else can touch but us. Only we can do that. The interaction with Jesus 9 times in which he initiated a change in life, in which he felt that there was a need. 9 times Jesus does this. Just sharing that with you. One of the things that we need to be aware of through the challenges that we're facing is, what is Jesus calling us to do, and who is it that we are to interact with? We will go in a couple weeks and have our district assembly and have this fine time together where we all come together as a large group. But it's the interaction, the one-on-one that Jesus was talking about. 40 times, 9 of them he initiated on his own. We also find out in these 40 interactions that Jesus used third parties. Third parties were used to initiate the interaction with Jesus. He's invited to many situations, and he's gone through situations where he meets an adulterous woman. He's invited to meet her. He's invited by Herod to meet Pilate. We find this so many times, but in John 1:45 through 51, I want to share this with you. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth, can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here is a true Israelite, in whom there is nothing false." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "Because I told you I saw you under the fig tree, you shall be greater things than that." He then added, "I tell you the truth. You shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Amen. Third parties. This has become more important today than it ever has. The idea of us, you and I, being that third party who introduces Jesus to someone else. You know, the thing that's just amazing to me is we were in a situation a couple of weeks ago in which we were we were sitting around a campfire with people with adult beverages. And they surely knew that certainly isn't something that I do or anything. And I felt right away that was something that we best not be around this. And they kept asking Gina all these questions around the campfire. And by the end of it, they were asking about my personal faith and how I walk with Jesus Christ. So I went inside after we were all done, and I was able to do that. And I said, "How did you feel, Jean?" And one of the things that she said was, "It's not for us to judge." She says, "We have done that for years, and we have always been the kind of thing because we have lived this way. It's time for us to love. It's time for us to be able to share." We would have, if we had left and not shared, we would have never been able to give our testimony about Jesus Christ. I was talking today about that in Sunday school, about some of the guys and the idea of what someone would think if one of them would be seen over at Mr. Mouse or something like that, and what would people think? And the whole thing is, it's not what people think, it's what God thinks. And sometimes God provides you with an opportunity that is completely opposite of the way that you think He would work. He uses third parties to bring His name to you. This woman would have never known. And in this situation with Nathaniel, he would have never known about Jesus. He would have never known the understanding of Jesus, but he was invited. How many of you in the last 2 years, in the last 6 months, have been so consumed with not catching COVID and getting so caught up with the idea of the challenges that we faced and not dying on this earth, that we've forgotten about the idea of being that third party who can bring people to know Jesus Christ? It can get that way to the point of saying that's more important. Where did Jesus usually do this interaction? Well, most of the time it was in the workplace of the people He's talking with. Oh my gosh, do you see where I'm going with this? You think it's Disney World. You think it's the idea of having massive people here in the congregation. It's in the workplace. We talk about the Samaritan woman in John 4, 7 through 42. The lame man in John 5. But it's James and John in Matthew 4, 21 through 22 that I want to share with you. Going on from there, he saw two brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in their boat with their father Zebedee preparing their nets. And Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and they followed Him. You see, the challenges that we face today are asking for opportunities in which we can find people. And one of the things that Walt Disney's going to have to do is they're going to have to change their whole attitude. They're going to have to go to a one-on-one, and otherwise they're going to die. Well, any of us think that church is going to change forever? It looks to me like the majority of the church happened in the workplace. And Jesus came to them right where they were. Whether you are able to go to work or whether or not your work has changed so graphically, you still have the opportunity. We are so worried right now of getting kids on buses. We are so affected by fear about the school year. And rightly so, there is so much to that, but it's also the understanding that we also still have a job to do. Fear not, for I am with you. What would be some of the questions that Jesus would ask in those interactions? You see, the kinds of things that Disney doesn't do. All they ask is, if you would ever get a survey, I did get a survey from them. What did you like about it? What did you do? What could we do better? Well, here's the three questions that Jesus asked in the garden. Genesis 3:9. And he asks Adam and Eve, "But the Lord called to the man, 'Where are you?'" In 11, he says this, and he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you to eat from?" And finally, the final and third question. Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Three questions that I think we also can ask ourselves in interaction. What is it that you're living? How is it that you're living? What is it that you need? What is it that caused this situation? The second one is to me, is a self-purpose of understanding who you are. What is it that you need? Who is it that you think you are? And so many times it's the idea of the idea that kids especially in their self-worth don't realize just how important they are. You are a child of God. And how special that is. And finally, the whole thing is, who told you you're not? Who told you you're not? I'll tell you, when you find out that your parents said this, or my parents said this, or my wife said this, who are they to tell you that when God is the one who created you in his image? It's pretty powerful stuff. 5 things I want you to write down. If you've got a pen and paper, here's 5 things, and I should have brought them up here. This is not Disney World faith. This is not Disney World church. God has prepared us through Jesus of how we, during this COVID situation, how we are to change and how we are to become the church that he's expected. Don't look at this idea of this being some kind of a plague that God has placed upon us. It is an opportunity for us to be who Jesus has called us to be. First thing, Jesus took initiative. Oh, don't you dare lay over and just wait for the vaccine. Don't you just lay over and just sit there and say there's no work to be done and we can't do anything until this vaccine is done. This whole world is crying out right now for you to take the initiative and to show Jesus and the love of Jesus. We're going to learn that next week about white and black cultures and the love that we should have for each other. And don't you dare think that you don't have any bias. I believe we all do. And we got to break that down and tear that down. Take the initiative as Jesus did. Also, rely on the initiative of others. When somebody is calling you and saying, "Hey, come, I want you to hear this guy. I want you to come and be to church." The initiative of others is what Jesus did so that people could come and know him. Jesus also left a lot of room for change in the schedule. You can't tell me that Jesus was not had his mind made up when thousands of people are all around him. And he's just working his way through the crowd, but he had enough sense and enough physical love, and his heart was so great that he could actually feel someone pull on his robe. You and I need to be able to sense that. Hey, I got to be somewhere. And someone needs to talk to you about Jesus Christ. Someone is hurting. Someone is challenged. Look, that's a bigger problem for me because I'm probably one of the busiest people. I shouldn't be, but I am. Take the time and make room for the opportunity that Jesus is placing in front of you. Many times, Jesus found the understanding to, number 4, is to come on your own turf. Where he found the most enlightenment is at the table sitting across from you. There on your own boundaries, in your own home, in your own meeting, whatever that would be. I just ask you to be able to do that. Your own home. If you can't meet here and feel safe, I can guarantee you in your home, maybe the safest place you could be. That doesn't mean you shut everybody else out. There's opportunities for you. And finally, number 5, Jesus found common ground with those he talked to. Common ground. You could sit there with somebody and you could go down the list of the things that you don't like about them, the things that you don't care for. But around a campfire, in a situation in which weren't real comfortable, my wife found common ground and our testimony was heard. I don't know what that means. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can guarantee you they wanted to know about Jesus. In a setting that I would have never expected. And we sat there and began with football, began with the things that we all had in common, and a conversation finally came to Jesus. I didn't do it. Gina didn't do it. You don't need 25,000 people walking through in the happiest place on earth to make you happy. You can recognize the opportunities that Jesus places in you and with you right here and now through this COVID disaster. John, I want you to know something. I've really come to this understanding. It's terrible. This is worse than I've ever imagined. This is the difficult thing, and all of this, it really is. It is. But there's something else coming. Don't think this is the end of it. Next year at this time, if we're not talking about COVID, you know what? There's going to be something else. We're at that stage of our lives and our culture that there's one after another of things that are just going to break us down. And it is going to be so easy for us just to say, I'm done. Well, my mama always told me this. I sound like Forrest Gump. I'm so sorry. Mama said, she always said this. You're not done till God tells you you're done. And I'm still your mother until I'm with you in heaven. You aren't done. This church isn't done. And I'm not done. Common ground, man. We got it. Every one of us. BJ's gone through some of the most challenging things in his life in the last few years, losing his daddy. Can't tell you how thrilled that was to see him walk through the door this morning and be loved by a Sunday school class and be loved by all of you. No, we can't hug. No, we have to do this arm butt thing. But if you can slip down your mask and just smile and let him know you love him, he knows that. That's all he needs, because we have common ground, because we've all lost a daddy. We've all lost a mama. Some of us have lost children. Jesus comes to us in common ground. So those 5 things, remember them. They're important. And that's, I think that's the thing that has got us to this point of how we can get through this COVID thing. And here's it, I promise you this. It's preparing us to get through this in a way that we become stronger and more vibrant, and a church that is just more excited and on power for Jesus for the next big thing that Satan throws at us. Don't you dare think COVID came from the Lord. This has affected us like we've never been affected before, and it is real. Don't you dare run from it. Do what needs to be done to keep us all safe. Do what you need to do to stay safe, but we still got a job to do. Jesus continued to interact. You have those 5 premises that you can go with. Use them right now, because he's preparing us for something even bigger. And the church is going to break out like something we've never seen before. Would you stand with me?